title to kick me out of the world written by HappyClassGreat teen.
In 752 AD, I committed a grave offense, and my father was exceedingly furious. He nearly disowned. I cannot disclose the nature of my transgression, but my father drew a sword to my neck, a measure of how deeply I had betrayed his trust. But instead of facing cutting me with a sword, he said I must receive 20 strokes of the plank. I do have a name. Call me Eldrick. It was at this point that our elders intervened, asking my father to allow me to accompany him on the journey to the mountain. They believed I wouldn't withstand the punishment. Father, please postpone this punishment until another day. Had I known the secret plan he had, I might have chosen the 20 strokes instead. But you often remain ignorant until events unfold. It will be as you say, was my father's reply. Everyone was watching him, and my stepmother walked away. I quickly stood up and held the garment of my eldest brother. Brother, thank you. I might have thanked him 1,000,000 times, smiling as if I had just gotten married. I will never forget your kindness. Thank you, I said. My mother was overjoyed and greeted my elder half-brother. Had she known what my elder brother had in mind, she wouldn't have thanked him. That night, I almost fainted.
As they sat in their room, the elder wife and the second son accused her son, who had requested that the third son should not be beaten. His reply was, only when he leaves the house will he then not be able to return. We must remove him from our father's protection. This golden opportunity, he will not be able to return.
That night, I asked my mother why I had to travel such a long distance for a seemingly insignificant mountain. She explained that I would witness firsthand the intelligence and power of our forefathers. If you realize your mistake, go to the mountain and renew your heart. Why are you silent? No, I'm not. Wait and see. I will no longer disappoint you and Father. However, something weighed heavily on my heart. We set out on the journey, riding on horseback, carrying backpacks with food, a bottle, and 3 swords. We rode past huge mountains and vast oceans. When we reached a lake, we dismounted, and I went with a bottle to fetch water. My 2 half-brothers stood with the horses, examining the map.
In 2 days' time, they would reach the mountain they were traveling to. Where is that rascal's grave? One brother asked. We'll be finding out shortly. The eldest brother replied.
I rushed back to them with the bottle and handed it over to my eldest brother. He thanked me. Thank you. He gave the other brother the bottle, and he said, it's as sweet as honey. When will you get another opportunity to taste such water? He returned the water to me, and I thanked him, even managing a smile. Refreshing, we continued our journey. At sunset, we traveled across a vast landscape and camped for the night. Earlier, we had hunted for rabbits. I didn't manage to catch any. I wasn't a skilled hunter, you see. My eldest half-brother gave me a portion of the rabbit meat, and I was grateful. You should eat more, my elder brother said. Starting tomorrow, you will lead the way. I understand. I will take care of anything you wish. I sat on a piece of rock and started eating the meat. You are truly useless, my other brother said. How can you call yourself a man and not be able to catch a rabbit? I replied. Smiling, haven't I got my 2 brothers here with me? After we finished eating, we went to sleep. I remember telling my brothers, tomorrow I will do my best in leading us, oblivious to their ulterior motives. The next morning, we resumed our journey. The grass on the roadside had withered. The mountains seemed devoid of water, and the land was partly desert. The dust from the horses was thick as we rode as fast as we could. I lagged behind, struggling to keep up. We rode until we reached a forest, where dried leaves covered the ground, making it difficult to discern any hidden hazards. There was also smoke or fog emanating from the forest, as if there were a frozen ocean nearby. This time, I was leading as my elder brother had instructed the previous night. I walked carefully, searching for a path that would lead us forward. While smiling, I thought that today I would achieve something significant. My brothers were working behind me as I walked among the trees, wondering if there was a path to be found. It became evident that there was no visible path for people to traverse. It doesn't bother me that they were lagging behind, moving slower than I was.
Eldrick's youngest brother smiled, knowing his little brother was about to fall into their trap.
When I reached a place with small trees blocking the way, I looked around and held my breath, fearing I would prove to be truly worthless. At that moment, my eldest brother spoke. "Are you having trouble finding the way?" "No. This is nothing." I didn't want to appear weak to my dear brothers. I turned slightly and smiled. "Don't worry, just follow me." I faced forward and continued searching for the road.
Then his two brothers exchanged glances. The eldest brother said silently, "Let's go." They turned their horses around, and as their horses moved, a muddy substance clung to their legs.
I kept looking around, trying to find a path. After reaching a point, I gathered my courage. "Brother, forgive me." Grasping my breath, I continued. "I do not see a path from here." I waited for a response, but the fog obscured my vision. I turned around when I didn't hear. "Brother, Brother Cormac." "Brother Thaddeus." I was completely surprised and terrified, feeling like a little child who had lost his mother in a forest. I urged my horse to turn around so that I could find my half-brothers. But as the horse tried to move, it struggled and seemed like it might fall. The horse kept struggling, and I kept thinking about where my brothers could have gone. Suddenly, I realized that I had been trapped in a mound. The horse reared up, and I fell from its back into the mound. The first thought that crossed my mind was to grab a tree branch that lay across the mound. "Help! Save me!" I kept shouting, unable to hear anything, not even a bird. But as I held it, it snapped from the tree, and I continued sinking. I kept shouting for help and calling my brothers.
However, Eldrick's brothers had left me and traveled far away.
I kept sinking until my head was beneath the soil. The mound's water was getting into my mouth, and I couldn't talk. My last cry for help was as if it were my final word on earth. All I could do was raise my hand up high. After my head had sunk, I noticed a rope encircling my wrist. I held it tight, and that's all I could remember. When I opened my eyes, I found myself not in heaven, but among a trade group. I had been rescued by a merchant. I told them where I was heading. The next morning, as they continued their journey, the trade group's leader pointed to the mountain for me. I climbed up the mountain. On reaching the top, I was somewhat tired and took out the bottle to sip some water. I drank the remaining water, and the bottle was empty. So I lay down in a corner and rested for about a minute. Suddenly, I heard murmuring from the other side of the rock where I was. It was a surprise. I looked around. Then I rose and tried to look at the people. They were my two half-brothers. I quickly considered going to join them and accused them of leaving me behind, but I stopped immediately when I heard what they were saying. "Will we be punished for not protecting Eldrick?" my younger brother said. I quickly hid myself. "We didn't kill him," my elder brother said. "He was the one who led us astray and endangered us. That's enough. Let's not talk about the dead." Yes, I sat slowly behind the rock, feeling like a ghost. Imagine if I just showed up in front of them. We will be able to rest without worry when we return. I almost started sobbing, but I didn't want them to know that I was behind them. I want to see Lady Livia's ashen face when we tell her the sad news, said one of my brothers. I swallowed the saliva in my mouth. I told you not to talk about it. If you think about it, it will reflect in your actions and expressions. I raised my head slightly, still wondering if I was hearing the right thing. If we are not careful, they will blame us for his death. Erase those thoughts from your head. Yes, brother. If I make a mistake again, cut off my tongue. Let's leave. I quickly repositioned myself to avoid them seeing me and buried my head in the rock as they passed. Now I see what was hiding in my half-brothers' hearts. I'd been completely betrayed. I started sobbing, and tears kept pouring from my eyes while I couldn't voice my pain. I tell you, I cried a lot. It was the only day I cried like that in my life. Then I sat on the rock, contemplating what I should do at this crossroads. I decided to gather my courage and went to where my forefathers had lived. It was a remarkable sight, and at that moment, I forgot about my brothers. The architecture of the buildings, the designs, the writings on the walls, everything was amazing, and it indeed recharged my spirit, not only from what I saw of my forefathers' possessions, but also from what my brothers had done to me. Then I sat back home. I had been walking with all the strength I had left. My legs were weary because I had lost my horse. When I reached the gate, it was as if nothing had happened. In fact, they were leading the search. I took a long pause when I saw them, looking as if I should do everything possible to make them cry.
Eldrick's brothers were looking at him from a distance as if they had seen a ghost. Even though his appearance had changed, he resembled a weary traveler who had lost all hope of returning home.
When I saw my mother, she was already crying, unsure of what to do. As I greeted her, my brother stood behind me. She rushed over, lifted me up, and hugged me.
Eldrick's two brothers looked at each other, a failed mission.
I went inside and dressed up. She told me what had happened, but I couldn't bring myself to tell her. Not anyone, but you, because you didn't know my brothers. There are things you should tell and things you shouldn't. I know my family and what will happen if I tell my mother or father. You see, I indeed recharged myself. I was afraid of many things, even though my brothers and I were not lost. They had abandoned me to die. I wish I could tell my mother that. Don't think that people you trust can't betray you. They can. I betrayed my parents' trust in me, and my half-brothers wanted me off this world. When you don't expect much from people, you won't feel as sad if anyone betrays you. Sometimes I think of seeking revenge on them, but my grandfather's saying always echoes in my heart. If you keep revenge in your heart, you are bound to break down. You see, I always strive to be strong.